So Jeremy, if
Thank
you
you.
want, and Jeremy has us up on, so we're ready whenever you are.
Okay, give me a second. I want to turn this phone off. Okay, come on, there it goes. Okay, I would like to call Community Development Committee meeting to order. And the first thing we have on there is an invocation. Does anyone want to volunteer, or we can just for the invocation? Anybody want to volunteer?
I'll be happy to, Mr. Chairman.
All righty, thank
All
you.
right. Yeah, thank you. Let us pray. Lord, we come together this afternoon on a rainy day that still has a lot of hardworking people out in the elements. I pray for their safety, for their knowledge that they're appreciated at whatever work they are doing. Thank you for making this community responsive and available to the good work for our citizens and for our city, and keep us mindful of our reliance on you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Councilwoman Jackson. Okay, we'll move right on. We have a public participation. I think we have some people from the committees that's on the line, I believe, that will be participating later. And I think that's about it, I believe, right, Ms. Johnson? That's about it?
Yes, sir. The members from the public that are here are associated with the items on the agenda.
All righty, thank you. Okay, the moving for the minutes, both minutes have been deferred. That's February 25th and September 9th have been deferred. So we'll move on down to new business. Okay, new business, the first, we have a presentation of the annual report on homelessness. And action may or may not be taken. So we'll ask Ms. Johnson on that particular one, I guess.
Yes, sir. Thank you all for your time and your dedication to all that we do here in the city. We appreciate it as staff. And what we have today, first, I'd like to introduce our two team members who really lead the efforts relative to homelessness for the city of Charleston. Christopher Jordan, who you see on the screen here, is our community liaison and homelessness coordinator. Chris is leaving us after tomorrow. So we've been interviewing over the last 2 weeks. He has done a phenomenal job while he has been at the city of Charleston. So we will certainly miss Christopher, and he'll miss us. But anyway, he is heading back to Canada, which is really his home. You'll hear from Chris in a few moments. And Talia Rice, who is one of my newer team members, is also on the call. She's small, but she's mighty. She is literally our outreach coordinator. She's our homelessness specialist. So she is literally the person on the ground who encounters homeless persons and unsheltered persons on a daily basis. And she does it undauntedly. She is not fearful of anything or anyone. She has established a fabulous relationship with those folks who are unfortunately out on the streets. And you'll hear later or hear in a minute about some of those folks that she's encountered. So we appreciate their hard work. We appreciate the team members in the city, in particular, the police department, who have worked very closely with our team to what I call change the tide and how we approach homelessness. And so we are thankful for them, for parks, for livability, and all those persons who play a part in us affecting change in that area of our city. So without further ado, Christopher has worked really hard on bringing this report to bear. Part of what we said we would provide evidence of is the success and or failure of hiring Talia, because this was a newly created position. And as you all will see, she has worked hard. Christopher has worked hard next to her, and what the report will bear out for all of us is what the need looks like, and what else we need to do to make the impact that is well overdue. So with that, Chris, if you will share with the committee the highlights from your report,
Sure.
please. Thank you.
Thanks everybody for allowing me to speak to you all today and to give you this report on what has been a very active year within our outreach programming. So This program came to bear just over a year ago, July of 2020, after several conversations related to what was amounting to sort of increased frustrations along the King Street corridor with regard to issues related to homelessness. And so building off of the models that exist in many communities across the nation, including several in our region even, we put together this pilot project to hire, again, an outreach worker to provide direct services to folks out into the community. And we have been capturing data since then to see what the impact has been. And as I will do momentarily, we found some very interesting sort of data that sort of emerged over the course of this past year. So I'm going to walk you through this report. Again, I'll give Talia the opportunity to, again, jump in with anything that she'd like to add. And again, welcome your questions, because I want to make sure that this is clear for everyone. So from July of 2020 to July of 2021, the first year of this program, Talia was successfully able to engage 345 unique individuals in our community. What I find interesting to point out is that the 2020 PIT count has highlighted that there are 323 individuals experiencing homelessness in Charleston County. So obviously we see a discrepancy there. While this program was intended to serve the King Street corridor, and part of her initial role was literally stopping in at every business along King Street to sort of let them know about the program and that she was available and a resource, we quickly found that she was getting pulled to all corners of the city. And actually the vast majority of interactions that she had this past year took place off of that corridor. We had 102 individuals in West Ashley alone. So just to give you an idea of how she's really been sort of pulled to all corners of the city, which has been quite the challenge. The success is that of those 345 individuals, 212 were successfully linked to care. A lot of the time that was the navigation center, but also again, the Department of Health and several other agencies were also ones that we regularly partner with and we're able to link folks to. I think something that's interesting to point out and sort of bears to the importance of this program is that less than 50 of the individuals that Talia contacted had been connected to any service prior to her point of engagement. So it really goes to show sort of a lack of coordination out in the community. And one of the reasons why we started this program is that, you know, the recognition that there just wasn't a lot of capacity in our community as a whole for outreach. There are very few dedicated outreach positions. I guess a success in its own right is that since we started this program, we've seen a few other positions created. 180 Place / the Continuum of Care now has a dedicated outreach worker who is similarly out in the field. We've tried to sort of split the need in the community, and they've largely been focused on North Charleston because obviously our purview is related to city limits. A couple other things interesting to note just in general about what we found is that 189 individuals that we encountered were either unable or unwilling to access services at a fixed location. So that had to do with either transportation, which again, if you talk to any of our service provider partners, is one of the main sort of obstacles that is consistently raised, is that it's hard to get to the various services in the various regions of our city. Or oftentimes it's a matter of having a negative experience. It only takes one, either, you know, perceived or otherwise, but that can forever close the door, either figuratively or literally, which again highlights the importance of thinking creatively around ways that we can bring services to folks out in the community rather than have that expectation that they come to us. Additionally, there were 53 folks who accurately or not believed that they were banned from services. We know in some of those cases, at least, that was just a case of mistaken information. In other cases, that is actually the case and that they were asked to, again, no longer seek services at certain agencies. So all of those things really point to, again, how important that this program has become and is, and has highlighted what is a significant gap in terms of, again, that connectivity between services. And that's really been the main focus of the program, is linking folks out in the community to those services and doing that follow-up, which is so critical for this population is just showing up time and time again. A lot of times there's a lot of mistrust with regard to working with agencies because people, again, have had negative experiences or hit roadblocks. And so, again, that consistency of showing up on a regular basis and being a part of someone's life, even if it's just checking in on the regular, can really go a long way to, again, advancing someone's situation. So again, we had great success in making some of those linkages. We've had success in building on this program. The Department of Housing and Community Development was able to co-fund a position with the Department of Health, who goes out with Talia a few days a week to provide mental health services directly out in the community. Similarly, we have been able to build sort of a roving service provider. It started with the Street Wellness Program, which is a group of volunteers who provide primary care out in the community. We linked up with them. We brought on the Department of Mental Health. We brought on the Veterans Affairs. And now, again, every Tuesday, they sort of go out as a unit. They actually have a physician that goes out with them now from MUSC as well to provide sort of direct care out in the community. So that has been, again, a great success as well. One of the bigger challenges that we found, and this is a challenge in general to programs, is that a lot of the programs in our community require you to have an ID. Rapid rehousing and permanent supportive housing are probably the most effective means of, again, advancing somebody from living on the streets to a home of their own. In order to be eligible for those programs or to be eligible to be considered for those programs, you have to have identification. Around 80% of the folks that we encountered in the community did not have identification of any kind. And so we've been able to work with 180 Place to help folks to acquire birth certificates at the least. There is still a barrier that we're currently faced with not having any sort of agencies that are readily able to provide funding for people's IDs when they lose those or their Social Security cards. But we have had success with the birth certificate end of things. Couple things to highlight that really show some great challenges in our community is that, so we had 345 people that we encountered in total. Of that number, 318 were identified as struggling with their mental health in some way, which is, again, a significant proportion of the total number. Of that number, 186 individuals were open to receiving mental health services. However, only 62 were actually successful in connecting to those services. And again, that has to do with, again, that transportation element. Again, Charleston, Dorchester Mental Health is way out in West Ashley. It's not the easiest place to get to. And again, whereas we have been able to have some success in the outreach position, which goes out with Talia and then parks at 529 Meeting Street part of the week, which is, I think, led to that 62 number. Again, there's obviously a lot of work to be done. Perhaps more disturbingly, of that 345 folks, 267 individuals were identified as struggling with substance use. And of that number, 134 were open to receiving some type of service. Yet of that number, 0 people were able to get connected to services. Again, Charleston Center, they do great work. They do not have the capacity currently to do any kind of outreach. I've tried to work with them on that, but they just don't have the resources. They have a finite amount of beds and they are often full. We've had really bad luck of calling them at the right time to be able to make those connections. So we know that substance use is of great concern in our community, and the overdoses are very prevalent. And again, this just really highlights what is a significant need. Perhaps the biggest concern and one of the biggest challenges to this work is that we effectively don't have any emergency shelter beds that are available in any immediate sense in all of Charleston County. So we know from the recent report, the city plan report, that we currently, to meet the current need, require 7,000 units at 30% AMI or lower just to meet the present need. And that's just in the city, and that's not accounting for growth or the surrounding area. And when you think about, we live in a region that has like 500,000 people almost, and they're, again, not a single shelter bed. So 180 Place does have beds. They have greatly reduced the amount of beds that they have, and their beds are not accessible in such a way that someone could just sort of walk into there and find a place to stay. There is a process that people have to go through. And so if somebody unexpectedly finds themselves without housing, or has been banned for whatever reason, or any number of other challenges, there literally is not a place for people to go. And so this has become an increasing challenge as we've seen sort of increasing frustrations within our community around sort of the presence of folks living on the streets. And the challenge is that, you know, with this expectation to move people along when there isn't anywhere for people to move to, creates quite the dilemma. This also, I think, really amounts to some of the significant challenges that we're seeing in terms of that connectivity to services because of the transient nature of the population, you know, moving around the community when there isn't sort of that fixed place for people to be located. It becomes very challenging to do this work. And again, Talia has done a fabulous job. I can't speak to that enough, but she is one person who's being called literally all over the city on a regular basis. And oftentimes when we receive calls, by the time that she's able to make it there, the person has already moved on. And again, being able to keep track of, you know, upwards of 300 people at any given time is all but impossible. So it really speaks to, again, the importance of this program and why we really need to consider expanding it. Part of this conversation began with the CPD, and the CPD has been a great ally to the Department of Housing in this project. Like many communities, I know that we rely heavily on police to address homelessness. However, it is not the role of police to do so. It's just not within their capacity. That's not what their design is for. And again, like many communities, we end up relying on them because that's what's available and we don't have an alternative. But the challenge is that, you know, even if we train police to, you know, be able to better handle these situations, what it ultimately boils down to is again, that lack of consistency. I spoke earlier about how one of the most important parts of this work is consistently showing up to doing in those check-ins on a regular basis, to following somebody's connections, you know, to making sure that, you know, when you're linking someone to the service, that you follow up and make sure that that linkage actually sort of came through. And again, I don't think any of us would expect the police to, again, have that kind of time to really invest in this in the way that is necessary in order to ensure success. And so even Chief Reynolds, I know, has been a huge advocate for this program and would very much like to see this grow. What I will say ultimately is that we as a community, I know this is going to require significant resources. But the reality is that we are currently spending significant resources on this issue. Again, some of the frustration that we're hearing is from the various departments in the city that are having to expend a lot of time in dealing with homelessness or the issues that are peripheral to that. And so by actually working to sort of address this at its root, we actually stand to save the community a lot of resources in the long run. And you'll see that bear out in many other communities around the country. And again, I've highlighted some of that information in the report. Again, this is a large issue and it's one that's going to be with us for a time, but instead of, again, our current focus, which has been to, again, I understand that there's this pressure to be able to respond to this in an immediate kind of a sense, but the reality is that this situation is so complex that there is no immediate solution. And it really requires us taking a good, hard, long look at again, the way that we think about homelessness in general. And I think one of the ways that we can tangibly work towards those long-term solutions is through programs like this. And I think that, as I've illustrated, hopefully effectively, we've had a lot of success, and that's just with one person. So if we were able to expand this to its full potential, we could really stand to make a significant impact on homelessness in our community as a whole.
Okay.
So with that, I open it to questions.
Chris,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris.
Chair,
Any-
Councilmember Mitchell, could I ask Talia if she has any comments? She will probably say no, but Talia, did you want to share anything with the committee this afternoon?
And you were very right, Gianna. I don't have much to say because I think Chris said it all. I mean, anything I would say would be repeating. So I'm just going to welcome any questions and try to answer to the best of my ability.
All right.
Come
Thank
on,
you,
Talia.
Thank you. Thank you. I think we have Councilwoman Jackson. I see her hand.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Chris, and thank you, Talia. I'm very sorry that we're going to be losing you back to your home country, but Godspeed. And you've created, I think, what was not an even identifiable sets of services in the short time that you've been instrumental into this, Chris. So hopefully we'll be able to, follow right along with the path that you've definitely put grooves into. So I hear nothing but good things about, how we're dealing. I have several questions. I know that a lot of what we're trying to do as a city is sort of become more collaborative, cooperative, however you want to talk about it, across the region. And, I apologize in advance. Everybody gets tired of me talking about where I came from, but my region up in the DC metro area was definitely exactly like this, with all the different jurisdictions, literally sharing two sides of a street, and people were being shunted from one community to the other because they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. This program didn't exist here, it existed over there. So I've been part of a lot of that in my affordable housing career, and also helping to start what was a much better funded set of emergency homeless shelters, that now are called hypothermia, I guess, and they have very specific guidelines on when you can even open a temporary hypothermia shelter. But that is my question. Should we, be pushing on this opportunity to be more regional in our approach to this? Is North Charleston going to be some reliable, collaborator with us if they're taking on their own circumstances? Should we be talking about having a more regional, entry-level shelter, however you would want to talk about it, where you said that, there's no way for somebody to just know that they're homeless one day and not have a place to stay that night. So that kind of intake services. So I'd like you to speak about that. And then the other question that occurs to me is, I know we're excellent at cobbling together a variety of resources, Ms. Shaw Johnson, especially as they come trickling down from the feds. So are some of the monies that you're spending now, are they going to disappear at the end of, pandemic funding or whatever we're talking about, receiving a sort of one-time, resources from the federal government? Do we have to be planning for more ongoing sets of, revenues to put toward this, because something else is going to dry up?
Great questions. I'll jump in on, I know that Gianna will have to supplement my comments, but to your first question, absolutely. I am a broken record. You talk to any of our community partners, they've heard me say this a million times. Homelessness is not any one municipality or agency or individual's responsibility. It's really about us coming together as a community, as a region. This is so complex. And one of the challenging things is, I think we really do a disservice to this population when we talk about the homeless, quote unquote, because everyone's coming at this from a very different place. Again, no two people have the same story or the same set of circumstances that have led them to where they are. And so what that means is that everyone requires an individualized approach to addressing these things. And again, that obviously is a huge task. And so I think, yes, I think absolutely we need to be thinking regionally in order to be able to be effective in addressing this issue. We have seen some work to begin with that. Obviously, the Mayor's Commission on Homelessness and Affordable Housing is an effort to look at, again, a regional approach to this issue. Again, we have been working over the last year to various degrees of success to get some assistance from HUD, technical assistance, to do some regional strategizing around bringing all the stakeholders to the table and coming up with a unified strategic plan that we can all collectively work towards. There's a lot of work to be done, obviously, but yes, we should be constantly working towards that. I do think that it's so interesting because, again, you never hear me generally advocating for shelter, because shelter is not the answer to homelessness by any means. However, because the need in our area is so great, I start to think along the lines of harm reduction. How can we mitigate the harms? How can we preserve people's health and wellness until such a time as spaces do become open, or they do become eligible to access some of the programs that currently exist. And because of that, I absolutely believe that we need to have a shelter in this community because, again, there's no shortage of scientific evidence of the daily traumas that people experience from living on the streets, not having a solid night's rest on any given night does tremendous damage to people's cognition and ability to sort of navigate spaces. And yet we then expect folks to navigate what are oftentimes extremely complicated processes, even for service providers to navigate. So just even having a place to lay one's head at the end of the night can have a tremendous impact for that person's individual health, but also our ability as a community to engage with those folks, again, because people are transient, again, getting sort of pushed around the city. When the unintended consequence when we remove somebody from a location is that in many cases, this has happened this year, the work that Talia has done has to start over. We basically have to start from scratch because we lost that person for a few months. We track them down again. Now we're starting from ground zero all over again. So absolutely, that is important. In terms of funding, I'm going to hand that over to Gianna, and I'm sure she has other things to add to that first question as well.
So Councilwoman Jackson, thank you for your service in Virginia and for all that you bring to Charleston. To answer your question even more specifically, the mayor has even been more recently engaged with Mayor Summey, County Council Member Chair Pryor, looking at efforts that are being undertaken in the city of North Charleston to help fill the gap because this is a regional issue. Looking at ways, and although it is not one jurisdiction's issue, the pressure tends to be on the city of Charleston to make things happen. But there are efforts underway, both with our faith community and with the city of North Charleston and Charleston County, utilizing those ARPA funds to help facilitate some long-term, we hope, impactful areas, specifically in the housing arena for these folks. Currently, we are utilizing our community development block grant funds to help with paying staff. We were fortunate in that the Convention and Visitors Bureau provided us a $10,000 check. When we brought Talia on, our goal initially was to bring in 2 people, and we were hoping they would fund 1 position in totality, but they were unable to do that. But they did provide us a check for $10,000, which was helpful. And so we are looking at ways to sustain the position through CDBG dollars. Naturally, I have also asked that certain positions be transferred to general fund to ensure that we have a longer term, more sustained effort, knowing that we aren't totally dependent upon grant funding. Right now, we are mostly that, but we know how to leverage well in order to facilitate that action. So thank you, Chris, for that report. And I guess to sum it up, we need more resources. If we want to expand and secure another Talia, we need money in order to do that. So hopefully, I know we are looking at the budget currently, but that is an item that we have asked support for. And I would simply add for us as we think about building the new navigation center, which I don't know that we have an exact name for it, or the Charleston Hope Center. Part of that is to have flex space available in that. And naturally, we are also contemplating building the long-term permanent rental units next door within that same structure. So there will be those units available. But again, I don't know, and I know Tracy could speak to this fully, but long-term, more capital is needed in order to make it happen. Thank you.
I'm gonna ask a quick question. I don't know if this can go any further, but Mr. Mayor, is any way that we can even talk with the Council of Government, since they do regional things throughout the region, if they can even shed any light on this, come forth to help us generate any other funds anywhere else?
Well, as Gianna just mentioned, I've been working primarily recently with the city of North Charleston and Charleston County. That's not a bad idea. I can't say that I've gone there to ask the COG, and most everything that they get along these lines would be by way of some grant application that they make, but sometimes they you know, they've been successful getting some grant money from EDA and some other sources. So let's ask them.
Yes, you know, since this is a big problem regionally,
Yeah.
and they deal with the region, maybe we can ask them. I don't know how it'll work out, but we can ask to see if that could be a one place we can go for help, since we deal with that regionally, and I'm on the board there too. So I can kind of see what happened with Ron Mitchum, because I know he would try.
Yeah.
I just had one other question, Mr. Chairman, follow up. So has this been on the plate of the business community? Is this a, you know, any sort of discussion group or work plan that we would be asking the Central Business District owners to be part of? Because I would think that in terms of, you know, funding, that might be a really good outlet for some subsidies.
Another great question. So I've been in conversation with Meg Thompson about the business improvement district, or the bid that she's been working on. And I will not be me, but my plan to present to them when that gets established and talk about this. Meg agrees that she thinks that there would be some appetite to help facilitate some of these efforts. One of the things that I was hoping to do is once we, so one of the biggest concerns that I hear about homelessness is from community members, which I get calls all the time, is about refuse. It's not about the individuals themselves, it's about their refuse associated. And so one of the things that I've seen work out in other communities, and I'd love to see happen in our community, is if we're able to build out this outreach team to begin an employment program where we hire folks who are experiencing homelessness to do micro cleaning in the community as a low barrier way to re-enter the workforce. Comes with some coaching and just, again, builds people's confidence and ability to sort of get back into the swing of things, while at the same time practically addressing one of the biggest concerns that comes up when it comes to this issue. So just as sort of another seed to plant there, but absolutely, yes, I think that it would be very much worthwhile to approach the business community.
Well, thank you
And
very much.
Councilwoman, I was going to say, I see the mayor's hand. He's probably going to say what I was going to say. Go, Mayor.
No, you go ahead and share.
Yeah, I was just going to say, pre-pandemic, the mayor had actually met with several of the businesses on King Street who talked about support. Granted, the tide has changed just slightly some, but they were very interested in being a part. In fact, we hosted probably 2 years ago now, several business owners from King Street at the current Navigation Center at 529 Meeting Street. So excellent opportunity to re-engage that clientele to be a part. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Mr. Mayor?
So, Mr. Chairman, I know we have 3 other things on the agenda,
Yes.
so I'll try to be brief. Just for the record, I wanted to reiterate my personal thanks to Chris for his services here with us over the last couple of few years. Time flies. I'm not sure exactly how long it's been, but Chris, you've been a great member of the team. You've really helped us move the ball down the field and brought so much insight and professionalism, expertise to this topic for our city. So I thank you sincerely and wish you best of luck with your future endeavors. If things don't work out the way you'd like, come on back. And then I must admit, Talia, I haven't spent a lot of time with you. And I know you know my good friend, Alan Woods, who's in a whole nother story in this, the cog in this wheel. He's an amazing individual who goes in the field in the hidden places and calls on those experiencing homelessness to particularly help them with any medical issues that they may have. And he works with, Talia works with him from time to time. And Talia, he was in my office just a couple of weeks ago giving me a report on how his little effort is coming along. And he said that Talia, she is a rock star. She is a rock star. She is so amazing in encountering and relating and dealing with the folks that we encounter on the street. So thank you, Talia, as well for your efforts. So I could go on about this topic a long time, and I'll try not to. But I do want to share with the council members on this call that despite we always seem to have a challenging budget, I will be including in my budget recommendation to you for next year, assistant for Talia to double the amount of outreach that we are able to do, and also to place a city representative full-time at the Navigation Center. I think it's incumbent that we have a little more hands-on approach to our partnerships that occur there. And I think that's true for the long term as we look to funding a permanent home for the Navigation Center, which is, as I think you know, with some funds we've received, we're buying property to do so. Next, we've got to raise some money to build the building. And Councilmember Jackson, we're embarking on basically a little capital campaign with the business community to raise an additional $5 million or so to supplement our city contribution in order to build the permanent Navigation Center. So that's going to be quite an opportunity to involve our business partners and business community, because we really need a permanent home. We've been blessed with the temporary home, but we really need to pursue a permanent home. So I'll be quiet now. I could go on and on this topic, but lots of good things have happened with Chris's leadership, and hopefully that will continue into next year.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I'd like to thank Chris also, and I'd like all the members of the committee just to give Chris a hand for the work that he have done, and applaud him, and much success wherever you go. But like we said, if you don't make it there, come on back.
Thank you
still
so
there.
much. That really means a lot. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's pretty cold in Canada, you know.
I know, I'm going back at the exactly wrong time.
Okay, well, item 2 was deferred, so we'll move on down to item number 3, which is a presentation on the housing strategy from the report of the Race, Inclusion, and Racial Conciliation. Johnson?
Councilmember Mitchell, if we could please switch number 4 and take that first.
Okay.
Nate Barber, who is the newly appointed, hired Chief Executive Officer of South Carolina Community Loan Fund, is on with us. And we were going to introduce the city committee of city council to Nate, and Nate is literally at a conference right now. So he's kind of pinch hitting, and I saw him moving around like, Gianna, hurry up, I need to do this. But as many of you know, the city of Charleston started the Charleston Housing Trust, which became South Carolina Community Loan Fund. That organization still exists today. They took off and literally under Tammy Hoy and then later Michelle Mapp's leadership did phenomenal things in the area of lending for affordable housing. And so more recently, their CEO, Anna, left and moved on. And so Nate Barber was just recently hired. Nate has been a partner with the city under South State Bank, where he's been in the financial business for many, many years. And I simply wanted the city committee of city council to know, put a face with a name, recognize him for who he is. Like I said, they've been a partner. They bring funding to the table, which is crucial to enhance the availability of affordable housing. And so if we can, Nate, if we could just hear from you briefly, please, and then I know you can move on to the other business at hand.
Thank you, Gianna. Mr. Chair, Mr. Mayor, other members of the committee, thank you very much for just allowing me a few moments with you today. Gianna, it was actually Low Country Housing Trust, not Charleston Housing Trust. And I have been a member of the Charleston community. I've actually met the mayor doing my work with SCASED over the years, working here. But I was with what was South Carolina Bank and Trust, which is now South State Bank as the CRA, Community Development Officer, from 03 up until I retired the first of this year, and was fortunate enough to come in as the new CEO of South Carolina Community Loan Fund. Really looking forward to the opportunity. I tell you, I thought long and hard about it. Retirement was starting to feel pretty good to me, but I thought I had a little bit more to offer, and I'm glad to be a part of this. And it's not just me. We have a team of folk here that have been working hard throughout the Low Country area and throughout the state with affordable housing issues, community facilities, and new market tax credits and other areas that to help in community development. So I'm really looking forward to being a part of this new effort going forward. And I'm technically here in your city. I'm at the Bohemian Hotel, and I'm having a board retreat with KHEC, which is also involved in the syndication of low-income housing tax credits. So everything that you're talking about here fits into what I have done and what the Community Loan Fund is involved with moving forward. So I just wanted to meet you. I look forward to seeing everyone face to face at some point, and certainly look forward to working with you as we address the housing concerns in Charleston and throughout the state.
Looking forward to meeting you too.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nate.
It's been a long time.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nate.
Thank you,
All
Nate.
right. All right. We're going to get back to my conference.
Okay, Mr. Barber, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Now we'll move on back to number 3.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
So Councilmember Mitchell, Mayor, and members of the City Committee of City Council, you all are aware of the work that the Special Commission on Equity, Inclusion, and Racial Conciliation took on over the last year plus. What I am going to do this afternoon is basically provide you information relative to the efforts that we are undertaking that are outlined in this report. They are certainly complementary to the Housing for a Fairer Charleston report and other efforts that we are undertaking, which I think is very complementary, of course, to all that needs to be done here in our community. Before I do that, of course, I want to mention those who played a part, and then I'll bring up a PowerPoint presentation. Tracy Dorn, who's the chair, and I'll ask Tracy to give comments in a moment. Abraham Champagne, who was the vice chair, Mr. Willie Hayward, Otha Meadows, Najima Washington, Julie Davis, who's a member of Tracy's team, and then Melissa Maddox Evans, all were members of the subcommittee on housing and mobility. A team member from mine, Matt Ojala, was on that committee as well and did a fantastic job. And so we want to share with you, because we think it's important for you to know, as a committee of council, the efforts that are already underway that are actually outlined in that report. And so we're going to share some of that with you tonight. Before I get into that, though, Tracy, if you had comments, I wanted to defer to you for a moment to bring those comments to the committee.
Great. Good evening, everybody. And thank you for allowing me to be here to be part of this presentation. I've sort of missed you all on Zoom, so it's great to be back for a minute. I was honored to be chair of the Housing and Mobility Subcommittee, and I can't say enough about my subcommittee and my co-chair, Abraham Champagne, and the work that they did. And we're very proud of the work that we did. We were certainly disappointed about how some of the things came down at the end, but that doesn't say that the work does not need to go on. And so I'm excited that you are all taking up some of these recommendations. The need is greater now than ever for funding for affordable housing. I know Gianna referred to some of the things that are going on in the funding world with the bond program at the state level and the state tax credit, what they're looking at making changes to next year, which will limit some of the funding we've all been counting on to implement the housing that we have ahead of us. So the work related to additional funding sources, as well as some of the other recommendations related to RAD and those things, are more important now than ever. So I thank you for taking up some of these recommendations. I will be available to answer any questions now and in the future as some of these move forward. But thanks again for the opportunity to serve.
Thank you, Tracy.
Thanks, Tracy. Jennifer, can I bring up this PowerPoint?
And there's a share screen down at the bottom, and you just click on that, and then you click on the screen that you want to pull up. I think that's the wrong screen.
So I think everyone can see this.
This is
Yeah,
your
you've got a
email-
different screen.
This is your email screen.
Yeah.
Outlook. Yeah.
Okay. I'm getting help from the younger set. Hold on a moment.
You have to stop sharing and then start with a different document, I think. That's more like it.
Yeah, we got it.
Beautiful. So this report again comes from the Housing and Mobility Subcommittee recommendations. We have spoken about the subcommittee and the chairs and the amazing job that they did bringing these recommendations forward. Again, I will remind you of what those are: create new funding sources to support affordable housing, optimize Charleston Housing Authority's rental assistance demonstration plan, which is RAD and other HUD programs. And hopefully we will hear from Art Milligan. I think Art is with us tonight. Improve mobility infrastructure, ensure that the Low Country Low Line is equitable and inclusive, name West Ashley Bike and Pedestrian Bridge, improve the mixed-use workforce housing fee in lieu formula, provide support for owners of heirs property and help families build generational wealth, create a community land bank, establish a fair housing assistance program, and enact mandatory inclusionary zoning. And so what we want to share tonight are the efforts that have been undertaken. The improved use, mixed use workforce housing ordinance, as many of you know, several months ago, I want to say May, we presented an improved formula where that fee actually was increased. And so we have addressed that particular effort. As I speak of that, I would also say to the committee that the Planning Commission is also asking us to revisit that. But I wanted you to be aware, as you all know, we have looked at that. One of the other strategies was creating a community land bank, establishing a fair housing assistance program, which is known as FAP, and then as previously stated, optimizing the Charleston Housing Authority's rental assistance demonstration program. As I indicated, the goal was to improve the mixed-use workforce housing fee in lieu, to foster more affordable housing in gentrifying neighborhoods, and to prevent displacement. The MU workforce housing fee in lieu should be increased. It has been increased. At this point in time, we have not had any new developments come under the new fee in lieu proposal. Most of the developments that currently exist were under the former fee in lieu formula, and we're waiting to see, in fact, if we have any new developments coming forth. It was approved and updated in May of 2021, created a tiered escalating fee in lieu that encourages affordable housing to be included on the sites. And so that effort is underway. We are going to continue to evaluate the fee in lieu, the workforce housing fee in lieu process. 4 projects have been rezoned to MU since May of 2021. And it will be determined basically whether or not units are included. And I know I saw Christopher Morgan on this call, I believe. And for some reason, I thought there were the 4 projects have not chosen to build units, but we'll get further into that discussion in the next meeting of the CD Committee of City Council. We've also been charged with creating a community land bank. Again, another goal that was outlined in the Housing for a Fairer Charleston plan, which we believe is a critical goal. Create a land bank to address the patterns of deterioration in dilapidated homes and buildings, and to provide a program for revitalization while creating more housing in the city of Charleston. Internal to the city of Charleston, a team of us have been looking at strategies behind this. And so the actions that have been taken to date is creating a GIS tool to document all vacant parcels in the city of Charleston. And so kudos to the planning team, the GIS team, very talented folk in the city of Charleston who are pulling this together, and then conducting initial research on community land banks, which me and my team have been doing. What we think will be appropriate to get this done is to engage a consultant to evaluate the feasibility and benefits of the land bank for the city of Charleston, and if deemed worthy, further engage the consultant to set up the community land bank. Because we are pretty stretched as staff, we think it'll be critical to move it forward in the manner appropriate to look at a consultant to do that. And we're looking at our CDBG budget to determine if we can help fund that happening in 2022, early 2022. One of the other goals was establishing a fair housing assistance program. In the HUD world, we call this a FAP. And basically, we wanted to establish that in the city of Charleston. The Fair Housing Ordinance needs to be reviewed for substantial equivalency to the Federal Fair Housing Act. In addition, the city has to determine an enforcement mechanism for bringing the fair housing complaints to bear. The process of establishing a FAP would ensure, again, substantial equivalency and enforcement entity at the city of Charleston, a very important process. I would remind us years ago, prior to Mayor Tecklenburg, we actually looked at this as an option. It was brought forth by Councilmember Gregory. And I know that Amber is working with our legal team currently to address this particular goal. Amber, did you want to add anything to my comments relative to the FAP?
I would just add that we have a draft proposed ordinance that's equivalent. It just needs to be reviewed again and brought forward to council, if that's the route we want to take.
You can have it on the main page.
Do it.
And Gianna, I think the slides on my end, they're not advancing.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, I'm talking and not paying attention. Okay. So to Amber's point, it sounds like the ordinance itself is in draft form. So hopefully within the next several months, that will be brought to council and then set up a meeting with the Department of Housing and Urban Development to discuss the status of the FAP program in relation to the capacity building resources, cost, and the application process in relation to that. Typically, FAPs are funded by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. They will, in some instances, provide both technical assistance as well as some funding in relation to that. Councilmember Gregory or the mayor, did you all have any adds to the FAP discussion?
I think you covered it pretty good. It's just now, as you stated, we have to determine whether or not we want to do it. Because as Amber stated, the draft has been completed. I have been having some preliminary discussions with the Human Affairs Commission in Columbia to find out whether or not the process, just to understand the process, whether or not it has changed. But I think I'm going to have to have some conversations with the Columbia office, our headquarters, to get specifically what we need to do if we decide to move forward.
Wonderful. And I know that Oka Meadows was also on this subcommittee, and he was engaged with us a few years ago when we were looking at this matter as well.
And we have been back and forth communicating on the issue as well.
Awesome. So committee of council, this is another matter that is moving forward very well. The other goal was to optimize the Charleston Housing Authority's rental assistance demonstration program, which we refer to as RAD. I would say that Don Cameron and Art Milligan, who is the COO, will soon be the CEO. We have been meeting with that team on a regular basis, I think every other month. Our design team in particular, led by Alan Davis, have been working on schematics and how, where appropriate, density can be maximized. And naturally, I think this committee, and it's been stated by this committee, as well as our staff, have been very interested in being able to take advantage of the opportunities that the Housing Authority has in relation to improving the units under the rental assistance demonstration project. Art, are you on this Zoom meeting? I don't recall seeing him. Okay, I don't hear his voice, so I'm going to keep moving. Basically, the actions that we've taken, basically speaking and meeting with Don Cameron, Art Milligan, and their team to maximize density. Unfortunately, they are not doing it on every one of their sites, but they have other sites that they're looking at and working with the design team and our planning department to increase density on. Now have established monthly meetings where we're meeting and discussing the projects, discussing the design of those projects with Don's design team and his development officer. And so we are seeing progress in that regard. In particular, providing design assistance on the Cooper River courts and the other upcoming projects that the Housing Authority is working on. So we're excited about that opportunity. And I know that the Housing Authority is also looking at the land, the vacant lot that is owned by the County of Charleston. The mayor's been busy with this one as well as an opportunity as well to build additional housing. So again, actions are being taken, which are exciting and will provide that additional housing that is so critical. Our next steps as it relates to RAD is to continue to meet regularly to discuss RAD projects. We have a meeting next week, assist with, when appropriate, temporary location during each project, and then take necessary zoning actions for the redevelopment of those project sites.
This is Dudley. While this was not specifically in the recommendations from the subcommittee, I don't want us, and the mayor is aware of this, and I think Councilman Mitchell, talking about using College Park as a mixed-use development. We didn't go much further on it other than just sort of having some preliminary discussion. But I do think that that's an opportunity for us to create a mixed-use community of student housing, affordable housing, you name it. And I just don't want us to just sort of put that on the back burner and perhaps to start having, Mr. Mayor, having some preliminary discussions with the Citadel.
Yes, it's the old College Park.
Yes, the old College Park.
Oh, yeah, I know the property.
Yes,
Sure.
I just think it's just an unbelievable opportunity for us to create more connectivity and more affordability.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with that. I mean, the decision almost solely lies in the hands of the Citadel on that matter, I must say. But while I got the floor, I would like to add that Councilmember Gregory, I commend you talking with the Human Affairs Commission on that matter of fair housing and enforcement. And I think that's a promising way to go. And I think partnering with them on that and even other efforts, recommendations of the commission seem to be well aligned. I want to thank Tracy for all of her efforts and the committee. And one example already is, I think, benefits coming from our discussions with Charleston Housing Authority. And I don't think some of those positive outcomes would have happened without their study of that whole Upper East Side area and the density that you undertook with Scott Parker. Will we end up, at the number y'all projected? No, but we're going to end up with a bigger number than we would have otherwise, and that's important. Already, the Housing Authority has already indicated that they are willing to dedicate 2 of the large blocks of Meeting Street Manor that they previously were not considering to do, and I think it's bearing fruit already. So I feel very positive about the work of the commission and the recommendations, and despite what has happened recently, that's the whole point of bringing these recommendations to the working council committees. We're going to continue this work, and we're going to look at all these recommendations and do what the will of council in moving good ideas forward. So thanks all.
And Mayor, thank you.
Thank you.
And Mayor and Council, I would just mention that we have worked on, because ensuring that the low country low line is equitable and inclusive was another goal. We didn't put this in the slides, but we are looking to procure a realtor to help with locating land in that area. We've been looking as staff, but we feel like it would be more proficient with a professional to do that, so that we capture opportunities where appropriate to both rehab as well as build new construction housing in that community to, again, advance this agenda and make sure that we're maximizing affordable housing opportunities in and near the low line.
One question, Mr. Mayor. Even when we are talking about the low-line housing and all the property that we have fenced in, I think that was turned over to us also, and we were talking about doing surface parking that we can charge, and that could generate some funds. I don't know how much it would generate, but all the cars that's parking over to the club that's there, they're not going to have any parking anymore. And if using that as a source of revenue, so far as I'm concerned, that you have to park there and pay for the parking, maybe it might help too to generate some things that we can use.
Right. Well, all those parking lots are on the DOT leased areas, or at least most of them are, and those revenues will help offset our expenses, and they per our lease with DOT and the Federal Highway Administration. Like if we have to put every dollar back into our improvements that we generate from the parking revenue. In those cases, it can't go into our general fund, but still that's money that we needed to get from somewhere. So I mean, it all helps us at the end of the day, and I believe we have for our capital project next year to go ahead and improve one of the lots on King Street, and then the year after that we'll further improve the lot on Hugh G. Street. And when we do that, we'll start charging for the parking, and that money will roll back into low line improvements.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. I see Councilmember Sacrament.
Councilman Sacrament, I didn't see your hand up. Councilman Sacrament, you have something to say?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just wanted to basically call out some of the good work that we've been doing around the commission. And it's been apparent to me, Gianna and Matt thank you so much for getting this pushed through internally. We all know sometimes there's a challenge with that, and you all have stepped up, particularly Matt, in staffing this, and Gianna, and of course Tracy with your leadership. So I think it's important we call out when it's working well. We've had two good meetings, Mayor, just to share with you. Paul Wieters talking about health and wellness, part of our subcommittee. Same thing. We felt very, very hopeful, and it was a great meeting to have. And he was very involved. And then we met with Councilwoman Jackson and talked a little bit about some of the HR recommendations. And I think we've got a follow-up meeting scheduled. But it's been very, very appreciative and encouraging to see some, not all, of the departments participate in a way that Councilman Gregory, myself, and Amber really want us to move forward. And I also want to give kudos to Amber too for corralling some of the work, and I know it's been difficult, but getting us all on the same page, Amber. So thank you for everything you've done up to this point.
And Councilmember Saccharine, Mayor, Councilmember Mitchell, and everyone, our planning department will come before you in the month of November to talk about those goals specific to small business development, those areas of the commission's work and the progress that they're making. So the goal for us is to make sure that you're consistently aware of where those goals are being advanced from the report. And so November, hopefully, once we get that meeting scheduled, will be another opportunity for you all to hear from that department about the efforts that are being undertaken there.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Do we have anything else?
No, sir. I don't know if you all received this as information. Jennifer, what's the appropriate motion? I imagine it would be that,
Yes.
so that it moves on to council.
Yes, that's correct.
And we would like the report that Chris presented as well to be received as information, because naturally we would like that to go to council as well. Thank you.
So we have all of the receipt as information.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Anything else to bring before the committee before we adjourn?
No,
Mr.
sir,
Mayor,
that's all we
anything
have
else?
today.
Okay.
Except that
Johnson?
this discussion is extremely encouraging. As Jason just articulated, the last three that we've been involved in, they've been very, very positive. So Gianna, thanks.
Thank you, Gianna.
And might we have your slide show,
Good job.
Gianna? Can we
Yes,
have
absolutely.
your slides? Okay, thanks.
Absolutely. We'll get them sent out to you.
Okay, if you can send the information out to us so we can go over it, just have it as information.
Absolutely.
We can read over it in our time so we can be very aware of it. So when we come to council, any questions come up, we can answer, kind of help.
I will
answer.
send it to the clerk tonight before I leave.
So
Mayor?
can I summarize what's going on here by saying that the recommendations of the Commission on Inclusion, Equity, and Racial Conciliation regarding housing and mobility are all accepted and being acted upon? We are doing this, y'all. Let's do it.
Yes, we are, Mayor. I'm with you.
Damn the torpedoes and full speed ahead. Let's go.
That's what I say.
All right.
Have a good one. Bye-bye.
All right.
Thank
Well,
you, Mayor.
the meeting is now adjourned. On that note.